Hello, DevOps friends. Hello, everyone. Hey, Dave Fogo. How are you doing? Welcome to Full Stack Live. I'm Jochen, the Monospace Mentor, and I'm back with my final stream for this week. There is not going to be an office hour tomorrow because tomorrow I'll be traveling to Hamburg for the Ruby Unconf or Unconference. And that's why in today's stream I'm going to work on a talk. I realized that you can actually hand in talk proposals, and maybe that's a good way for me to participate, to be an active participant. And yeah, well, let's talk about this for a minute. But first I need some coffee, and my cup is leaking again, which is quite annoying. So yeah, conferences. I've booked a few conferences for the last few weeks. I've been to DevOps Days Berlin, and I'll be back in Berlin for StackConf later this month, and this weekend I'll be at Ruby Unconf in Hamburg. And that's because I thought, yeah, I would like to see myself go back on the conference circuit, meet people, have conversations, listen to inspiring talks, get a little bit of the human touch, I guess, instead of just sitting here in my home office and talking to people via my camera. And so I booked myself a few conferences that are interesting to me. No, Dave, I'm actually based in Ireland. I live a little bit south of Dublin, but I am German, and that'll probably explain the strange mix in my accent. So it's by coincidence that I've booked all German conferences there. I think the reason is that there weren't any other EU-based conferences at the same time, or they were too expensive for my taste. For example, there's also going to be a DevOps Days in Amsterdam, and I think it's going to be some anniversary event even. However, that event would have turned out quite expensive, not only for the conference itself, but also for accommodation, because, well, yeah, it's about summer, and so hotel rooms are getting more and more expensive, especially in capitals like Amsterdam. So I opted out of going to DevOps Days Amsterdam, even though many people I know will be there, and I'm probably eventually regret not having booked it, but you can't be everywhere. You're US-based, thinking to moving to Portugal. That's an interesting thought, and Portugal is not the is a great destination, I think. Not only because of the weather, but I also think Portugal is quite open for tech business and things like that, even with things like, I think, tax incentives and stuff like that. Maybe that's one of the reasons why Portugal seemed appealing to you. I'm not going to try and deter you from pursuing that, because I think you could do much worse than going to Portugal. And if you gave me the choice, go to the US or go to Portugal, I'm pretty sure I'd be going to Portugal. So yeah, good morning then, if you are still US based. Okay, so conferences, yeah. That's why I'm going on a few trips these days, and I'm very much looking forward to Ruby Unconf in Hamburg this weekend. Reading their updates they sent to me I realized, okay, so it's not an unconference in the way that some are using a format that's called open space, where people can suggest conversation topics. Apparently they are more after talks, and so people can propose talks at the beginning of the conference, and then the complete audience votes which talks then will be held. So I'm going to try and get a infrastructure as Ruby code in. I did that talk about, I think, more than 10 years ago. But it might still be new to many Ruby developers who might be familiar with things like Rails or maybe even Hanami, just to name another web framework for Ruby. But even I was not aware early on as a system administrator that there is a Ruby-based configuration management tool like Chef. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to try. I'll try and get a talk ready for the weekend, which means that today I'm going to do my slides, and then I'll have probably tomorrow to practice the talk so I don't go in completely unprepared. The Lummen, hey, how you doing? Thanks for the compliment. Yeah, my hair by now is long enough to tie it, and yeah, I've made myself a little bun. So here you can see it from behind. I'm always open for compliments. So yeah, it's a little bit short notice giving this talk, but since I'm pretty much familiar, know what I'm talking about, having done Ruby-based infrastructure code for 14 years now, I think I'll manage. So that's what we're going to do today. This whole week is basically kind of a motivation, self-motivation thing for the Ruby Unconf on the weekend in Hamburg. And so on Tuesday I did some Ruby coding and stuff, which was also fun. And today we're going to actually prepare a talk about infrastructure as Ruby code. And we can talk about Ruby all the time. We can talk about other things as well. Let's not make this a complete monologue on my side. Pop into chat if there's something that you'd like to ask, or you'd like to share something, if you have something about software engineering, system administration, anything that tickles your fancy. Maybe you found a tool that excites you, or an open source project that you'd like to promote. That's what this is all about here. Ruby does make money. It literally does. Just take Shopify. The whole thing is built on Ruby, and not only Shopify itself makes lots of money using that, but also the people using Shopify are actually making money on Ruby, even though most of them will never know. Thanks for the appreciation for the music, Dave. That's a playlist on Spotify that I love using, which is Stream Tunes with a double E, the Synthwave playlist. And we'll never know that it's Ruby they're using by using Shopify. They might be aware that they're using Jinja, because that's what Shopify uses for their templating system. And of course, people need to be able to adapt their templates to their own branding and things like that. So people do actually, I think, use Jinja intentionally, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have a Shopify shop, so I don't know that firsthand. But I don't think people will touch any Ruby code by building their shops there. Okay, so let's go right into things. I'm going to try a new tool today. I'm going to use... now I've forgotten what it's called. Give me just a second. It's called WriterSide. It's another JetBrains IDE, but not for any programming language, but for writing Markdown. So it's a beta, an open beta at the moment, so you can actually download it for free. And I'm going to use that as my Markdown editor today, just to get a feeling for it. The Lemon says, I'm learning full stack and started with JavaScript and Python. This will sound naive, but I would like to make a course teaching them so that I can learn better. What's your take on that? I think that can be a great idea. I assume you sound naive that because you're at the start yourself and now are aiming at teaching others. And yes, of course, you need to be aware of your limitations in that. However, what I've learned as a teacher is that there's always someone who has less knowledge than you. There are also people who have a lot more knowledge than you and me together. But I think... you definitely can teach other people about the things that you are learning just now, and they'll learn something from you. And you have an advantage in a particular way where you've just learned this and you know what came easy to you and where you had difficulties grasping a specific concept or something like that. So you might actually be able to share your newfound knowledge in a way that makes it easier for other people to learn it than it was to yourself. And that way, it's definitely worth a try. In the worst case, you won't have much success in teaching others, because maybe you don't find anyone you can teach it to or something like that, or you realize that there are other things that are too much of a challenge. But in the worst case, you'll still go out of that experience having learned something yourself. Maybe something about the stuff that you try to teach, or maybe something about yourself, about your own teaching. And that's only the worst case, so there's still a benefit. But in every other case, the benefit will be even higher for yourself and the people you're teaching. So, yeah, I mean, you don't have to make it a commercial enterprise or something like that, where you bet something on your own success. If you just try to share the knowledge that you're gaining yourself, that's going to be an interesting journey, and I'd love to learn more about that. So feel free to share your progress on this here in chat on the stream, or maybe on Discord. And here's our Discord link if some of you haven't yet joined it. And not knowing what you don't know is definitely something that we are all struggling with when we are taking on something new. So exploring that is something that can be a learning in itself as well. Victor said I would just pick one. JavaScript and Python are worlds apart and could be too much as a start. Yeah, limit your scope. That's very good advice. I didn't go into that initially, but yes, I would even narrow my scope even further and just teach something very specific out of one of these two. All right, so what I'd like to do is explore. Okay, I changed something in my streams, in my monitor setup, and now I'm sharing the wrong screen here. Give me just a second. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I guess screen 1 and 2 have switched. All right. What do I have to change here? That's probably this one. Yeah, let's share this one. Here we go. I switched the order of my screens so that notifications appear on my auxiliary screen instead of my main screen here on stream. Okie doke. We'll have to make a few changes here because not only am I in the wrong project, so let me create a new project here. Let's open projects. Source monospace talks. Bada bing. But that is not a new folder. And what is a help instance? A help instance is a set of topics in one table of contents. I'm not going to build a help instance. Wait a second. How is this supposed to work? I think I should have used open here. Yeah, let's open talks. Where would you like to open the project talks? This window, yes. We can change our project here. Okay. Let's create a new folder, which we'll call, oops, no, not this. (2024-06). Let's use today's date, 06 dash Ruby dash Unconf. If I type very slowly and with surprising amount of errors, that's because I switched my split keyboard to the Colmac DH layout. I tried it twice in recent years to switch to Colmac and failed twice. And I thought, let's give it another try. And I did realize that I made an error before where I tried to get proficient in the new keyboard layout too quickly and got frustrated. The main problem I'm running into is, of course, muscle memory. I'm used on typing the QWERTY layout, and one thing that misled me was I was doing quite well in typing tests. And again, I switched 2 days ago, and I did a few typing tests, and I'm already back at 30 to 40 words per minute, which is decent for having freshly switched to a new keyboard layout, or kind of new. But doing a typing test is something completely different than typing in another context. For example, especially typing here on stream, where I'm talking, where I'm thinking about what I'm doing, where I'm building code in my brain or something like that. And once I let my fingers do what they want to do, basically in a background task, muscle memory kicks in, and I start completely mistyping. And that kept frustrating me, because I was doing so great in typing tests. How doesn't this work? Well, it's completely different, because in a typing test you're focusing on the screen and your brain is doing nothing else than typing. Even though you might not be typing very intentional and having to think about every keystroke, your brain is not doing anything else. It's not occupied with doing some kind of a main task, a main process. The typing test is the main process. And once you switch to something where typing is just a side occupation, then things go off the rails. And so I decided, okay, let's give myself some leeway. Let's give myself some break, where I will type slowly and intentionally, even when I'm doing a project, even when I'm on stream, just to let my muscle memory slowly adapt and get things done. So I'll be typing a lot less quickly than I used to, simply because, yeah, I need to train my brain. Now, we have to make a few changes here to the overall styling and stuff. Externally added files can be added to Git. View files. There are files that weren't in Git. Did writer side add some? What's modules.xml? Yeah, I guess. Talks, IML. Yeah, those are new files. It's the .idea subdirectory, so that's added by writer side. Am I going to add them? Yeah, why not? Let's add them. Now, this text is not what the size that I want it to be. If it's far too small for the stream, I think, and it's even a little bit too small for my aging eyes. So let's see what we can do in our settings here. Accessibility. Maybe we should start with switching it to a different theme. Darkula is at least a little bit closer to Dracula, but I think I can actually import a color theme. Shouldn't I have Dracula still lying around in my temp directory? And if so, where is my temp directory? Here it is. Temp, there's Dracula Pro. And I think, yeah, I think that's the jar file that I'm supposed. Nope, that didn't work. Oh no, that's a plugin, so I'll have to install that as a plugin. We'll do that later. Zoom 100%. Let's increase zoom to 125. That's better. Let's try and use inter in a bigger size, like 16. Okay, that's also better. Even if we go back to 100%, yeah, that makes more sense. But I'll do 125 for you. So that's that. For my slides, I'm going to create a markdown file, which I'll call infrastructure as Ruby code dot. No, not that HS, it's MD. Here we go. Let's add that again too. And then I'd like to change my editor font as well. So that's here. There's a font section here. I'm not going to use JetBrains Mono, even though that's a perfectly good font. I'll switch to my favorite font, which is Operator Mono. And I think we'll go size 14 at least. So let's apply that. Yep, that looks good. And could even go 16. Wouldn't mind. Okay, let's apply that. All right. Any other typography settings? Main weight bold? No, I'll use book. I have no idea why bold is always the default in this font. Bold weight is bold fallback font if all else fails. Let's switch to actually JetBrains Mono. Okay. Now we were talking about the Dracula plugin. Can I? Yeah, there it was. Dracula theme install. Accept. And now I think I can go to appearance and no? Do I have to enable that first? It's installed. Do I have to apply? I think that did the trick, huh? Yep, that looks very Dracula-ish. All right. Nice. So if I close this, that's actually Dracula Pro as well. And I might actually, I have bought Dracula Pro even, so I might actually switch to that later. What notifications do we have? Nothing of import. So, let's get started by writing a headline. Oh dear, this is going to be interesting. Let's focus on typing. Infrastructure as Ruby code. Okay, and let's do this. So if you're asking yourself what am I doing here, this is going to be a slide deck that will be displayed by Reveal.js. And the way this works is this repository is actually a Jekyll website, Jekyll the static site generator, and I've built two templates or style sheets that I'm using for this Jekyll website. I'm doing air quotes because it's not actually a website in that regard. Well, it turns into one eventually, but the thing is, if I enter some YAML front matter here, I can actually say layout colon reveal is it just reveal? I'll have to look that up. Reveal, and let's save that, and let's take a look at a different slide deck then. Let's take this one. It's reveal-md, which is a special layout that turns Markdown into what Reveal.js can parse. So yeah, let's simply copy that line. and paste it here. Nice. So that means if I save this and I open a terminal, try new terminal, you can use this menu to enable the beta version of the new terminal. I didn't have much luck with that when I tried it the last time in RubyMine, so we'll stay with the old terminal for the time being. And now I can actually run my static site generator here. So we'll do a bundle exec Jekyll serve -l, which is generating the static site, and then we can actually get that displayed here on screen. So let's create a new tab and go to, oops, nope, didn't, oh, mistype. Let's go to localhost 4000, and actually, why isn't Ruby Unconf appearing here? That's interesting. Oh! Why is Jekyll generating this inside here? I think that's strange. That shouldn't be here. Let's get rid of that. Delete. Might be remains of a... Okay. I am in Ruby Unconf here, so let's try this again. Shouldn't it get picked up automatically? Oh, it doesn't because I didn't name it slides.md or script.md. Ah, the file names are hard-coded. That should actually not be the case. Let me see how this works. Can I... open this here? Of course I can open it. Even syntax highlighting does work decently. So we are looking for... Oh, we are missing an index.md. Okay, I see. So we need to have at least an index.md in there. No problem. So let's create another file called index.md, index.md. And yes, we can add that to Git as well. And the index.md doesn't even need a lot of stuff. It's just an overview page. So I can have a slide deck and the other type of document in there, which is a teleprompter script. So if I want to turn my talk into a video for YouTube, for example, I can actually write out a complete teleprompter script that I can then read to record the video. And both then will be listed from the index page. So I think the index page just needs a headline and that's it. Everything else is optional. So let's type that in as well. Infrastructure as Ruby code. Save. Still nothing here. Ah. What else is missing? We are looking for all pages whose name is index.md. We are using my newly built public filter here. which should not apply because I'm running it in development on my machine, which means all the talks appear. I've recently published this repository to my GitHub, to my GitLab account, actually, and I introduced this public filter, so only talks and scripts that I tagged as public will appear on the official website on the internet. However, here in development mode, I can see all of them. Question is, why can't I see my new talk here? We go through all the site pages where the name is IndexMD, and we'll list them here. Let me see if the IndexMD needs something else. Does it need a title? I think that's what's missing. If Jekyll can't pick up a title, I've just entered that as a markdown syntax. I think I need to make this a title, and that's all that's necessary. Yes, here we go. And I think we should add the date as well, so that it gets sorted properly, so that 2024 06 nice. And if I go there, it'll render the index.md, which does not have any content. Do we have to have content as well? Let's see. It's been a long time since I created a new talk on this repository as code. We need to assign a layout here, and that should be actually a default setting. I think if I set a layout overview, interesting, it still doesn't render it properly. Oh, yes, it does. Now it does. Okay. And there's no list entry. Okay. And actually, I don't need the... Okay. And that should be the default. Let's take a look at our YAML file here. Default, scope path, values, public false. We just need another section here that says whenever we encounter an index.md, the default layout should be overview. What's the problem here? There's no JSON schema or YAML schema, I guess. I don't care, actually. Okay, I think that should do the trick, so I should be able to control Y to redo or delete line. I want it to be delete line, actually. Let's save this. This does not work without restarting the static site generator because it'll only read this configuration file once. Doesn't work. Hey Buzz, welcome to the stack. Oh, Nepal, that's quite a distance to Ireland here. Hope you're doing well. Nepal is ahead of Central Europe, right? So it's more like good evening to you, I guess. So if I set layout overview, it works, and if I delete it, it doesn't. That is strange. I thought I set that correctly. Layout is set to overview for all the index.md files. I mean, I don't mind adding that. Still, I would have thought it would work. And now we can't see the link for the file that I already added. Probably also because we don't have a title here. So let's call that slide deck. Which makes it appear, and now you can see that this markdown here gets automatically converted into a presentation that I can navigate and do all kinds of stuff. And now we are finally ready to start building this presentation. I think I'm going to fold away the terminal as well. We don't need that for the time being. Doing great, Buzz. How are you doing yourself? I hope you're doing great. Now, how about this preview? That's just a code. That's okay. I did resize the window, I guess. So now it's split 50-50. We can even make this a little bit wider because the code is more important. All right, so question is, what are we going to put into this presentation? Well, as I mentioned, I already did this many years ago, and I think I'll just pull this up again on my iPad, because it's a Keynote file that I can't open anywhere else anymore. I don't have any Macs laying around anymore, and so I guess I'll just take a look here. So let's start with a rough outline of the talk. Outline, and the outline is going to be an introduction, or well, introduction doesn't tell you anything, so let's call it what it is. It's going to be an introduction to infrastructure infrastructure. If you're wondering if I'm only typing with my left hand or something, or why else I'm struggling because 2 days ago I decided to switch from the QWERTY keyboard layout to the Colmac keyboard layout, and that's quite the learning curve, to be honest. Infrastructure as code. Please bear with me while I'm trying to build some muscle memory here. And then I'm going to talk about Chef. and sync. Chef is the infrastructure as code tool that's based on Ruby that my company has been using for 14 years now to automate hundreds of Linux servers on our managed hosting platform. And Chef had the same kind of events that Terraform and Redis had lately. Chef changed their licensing, I guess ahead of being bought up by a company that I don't even know by name, actually. And so the open source community forked the project, which led to Sync, which is a recursive acronym meaning Sync is not Chef. And that's the open source variant of Chef that was forked off. I have to take care of a little bit of spillage here. Unfortunately, my keep cup that I'm using to have my coffee is leaking. The lid is leaking, even though I got a new lid actually for my birthday. The new lid is leaking again, which is frustrating. And then we'll do a practical example. Example. And we'll end with a Q&A. That's another slide done. I can go over here and navigate to this slide, and as you can see, this turns into nicely formatted slides automatically, which I love. All I have to do is take care of my content, and the styling and everything will be taken care of by the automaton. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, I guess it's customary to have an About Me. Slide in here. I might add a few more details here later, but I don't like these lengthy introductions of speakers, so I'll try to keep that short. Tiberian, how you doing? Welcome. You got a Chinese copy of Stanley's cup, works really well. It's a 1 liter cup. Okay, that is definitely something. That would get me over a full stream without doubt. It'll probably cause another bathroom break, actually. Yeah, those Stanley cups are pretty popular at the moment. I don't know why, but apparently they are. And of course, if something's popular, it gets cloned. All right, so that's the About Me. So yeah, let's talk about infrastructure as code then, I guess. Infrastructure as code. And then on this slide, I'll just talk about how repetitive stuff is error-prone and tedious. In the SRE business, we call it toil because it doesn't really create as much value as effort goes into it. And so this is better done by the computers themselves. And that's why I have infrastructure as code. And since I'm going to Ruby Unconf, I'm happy that there is actually a solution that allows you to do infrastructure as Ruby code. I actually was not aware that Chef cookbooks, as they are called, are actual Ruby code, because Chef has what's called a DSL, a domain-specific language, where you basically use the building blocks that Chef gives you to install packages, write configuration files, restart services, things like that. And I've been just copying, pasting stuff like that and adapting them to my own needs. And only a while into it, I realized that I was building Ruby code, actually. Speaking of Ruby code, there's Moo. Hello. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Okay, so that's infrastructure as code. And then I'll get into chef/sync as quickly as possible. And now we need a few details that we can name here. So originally, Chef was built by a company called Opscode, but since Chef became their main product, they called themselves Chef Software. So I'll just name that here, Chef Software, and then formerly Opscode, like this. And they got bought. What did Chef Software? Progress is the company that bought Chef Software. To be honest, I never heard of Progress, and still don't hear of them. I can only imagine that they are some kind of a bigger solutions company like Mirantis. Now owned by Progress. Progress is the leading provider of application development and digital experience technologies. I'm not so sure about that, but who am I to judge? Progress, Telerik, Ipswich, Chef, Kemp, Flowmon, MarkLogic, Semaphore, and certain product names. I think the only name that rings a bell here is Semaphore, and I'm not even sure anymore what that was. But I've never heard of any of the other products in that list before, except of course Chef. Interesting. Now, that's that. When did the community fork Chef into sync? Here's the admin magazine reporting on this. Ah, Martin wrote that, okay. I just thought the title Chef Snafu Begets Sync was pretty snarky, but Martin definitely is a source of snark. Okay, so for the past 2 years, Chef software used commercially has required a separate license. So that was in 2022. So in 2020, Chef started requiring a license if their open source software was used commercially. So let's add that, which means 2020. We'll call it introduction of commercial license. And then we'll have the OSS fork called sync. WSFTP? I have no idea. Where did you see that? Was it on the previous page? Okay, so... Oh, here it says, since the spring of 2019, however, has been troubled. Anyone wanting to use pre-built packages for Chef now needs a commercial license, which was not necessary before. Ah, and that's what gives Sync its legitimacy, because if someone else builds the packages from the source code, of course, it isn't covered. That's a strange move, isn't it? To say, yeah, it's still open source software, but if you want to use pre-built packages, which is the only way to conveniently get stuff into production, then you'll need to have a commercial license. I mean, I'm not complaining. It allows us to use Sync instead of the official Chef packages. But I was wondering in recent days, how does this even work? Why is Sync able to publish the original source code, still published by Chef, without violating any kind of license, but this license is just all about the pre-built packages. Very strange. Muas, isn't that more or less the same way Red Hat is working? Not quite, is it? I have no idea, actually. Can I use Red Hat Enterprise Linux packages, even commercially, without paying a support fee if I don't want to have support? Not sure. And I just realized Red Hat also changed their approach last year, didn't they? And it wasn't important enough for me to memorize exactly what they changed. Okay, so let's fix our date up here. That's actually 2019. It's quite interesting. That's a 4-page article. Let me skim that quickly so I actually know what I'm talking about here. Open source free alternative take root. Sync enters the fray. How it often works. The day that extensive changes to Chef licenses took effect was April 2019. If we have this information, why not add it and be more precise? directly affecting those Chef users who had been using Chef normally, like any other Floss software. If you represent a corporation, governmental organization, or other legal entity, or you intend to use the software for commercial purposes, you must contact Chef directly to obtain a commercial license for this software. Blah de blah. Although it's not legally required and in fact not necessary to give away the results of compiling an open source software product for free, a certain standard approach for distributing software to the general public has established itself in the Floss world. It works like this. Vendors such as Docker or projects such as PostgreSQL have a vested interest in providing their own user base with working versions of their software. In the past, these versions mostly took the form of packages. Docker, for example, still offers the community edition of its container environment, which runs on all common Linux distributions. I wonder how prescient this article, which was from 2022, 2 years ago, is going to be in terms of what later happened with Terraform and Redis. Let's see. System administrator can easily use the packages offered by the vendor. To do so, they add the corresponding vendor repositories to the respective package managers on their systems and download the packages available there. So on. They regularly use the freely available packages of their own software as the basis for commercial extensions. That's the open core approach. Above all, however, they offer the manufacturer a certain degree of control over which version of their own product people use. It makes life more difficult to provide support and track bugs if every system administrator is working with self-compiled binaries. Because, yeah, there can be all kinds of breakage then. That way you can at least limit the amount of variation that's out there. On top of that, software vendors can ensure that the packages used by users meet certain quality standards and are not deprecated. So if someone still uses Chef 0.9, as I was in the beginning, they'll probably won't get any support. Chef and the company behind it, Progress Software, adhered to this very principle for quite a while, including proprietary tools whose source code was not publicly available. Okay. Well meant, badly done. Interesting headline. Went into effect in April 2019, had two main goals. Balthazar, welcome to the stack, mate. You can't find fault with the first. The vendor wanted to free itself from its closed source components and put all of its proprietary tools under a free license, or at least the source code for them. Did they? Huh. Here's the rub. At the same time as changing the license of the source code of various tools, Progress Software introduced an end-user license agreement. Wait a minute. When did Progress Software come in? I think I missed this. Wow, that shows how closely I was following developments there. Progress Software was already in play back in 2019? Were they the ones that introduced this? Huh. The Lomon. Yeah, doesn't it? I have no idea who Progress Software is, and I think I only discovered Progress Software owning Chef last year or something, and I thought that was something new. But apparently not. I need to research that further. Now we're getting down a rabbit hole, but Progress Software acquires Chef in 2020. So the license change was 1.5 years earlier. Maybe that was... Is my brain skewed by COVID? Did I discover that in 2020? And that was already 1.5 years after the license change. So I didn't discover it in 2023. I might have actually... Oh dear, I have no idea anymore. What even is time? Anyway... maybe it makes sense to actually do this in chronological order. So that was 2020. Acquired by... Again, I did actually switch to Colmac layout on my split keyboard. That's why I'm having so much difficulty typing. Anyone who had already compiled Chef themselves by then was practically unaffected by the changes. Number of admins to whom this applies is probably very small. Yeah, why compile it yourself if pre-compiled packages were already available? The number of system progress software tripped up with the license changes is undoubtedly far larger. Yeah, that definitely tripped us up because it basically halted which Chef version we were using. Because we stayed with the final open source version and didn't make the change. We couldn't make the change to the commercial license because that would have bankrupted us, because it was a per host license and we would have had to pay for hundreds of hosts. So that definitely threw a wrench into things. The manufacturer has tried to appease its clientele. The new EULA does not apply to all Chef components. The central tools of a Chef installation are still available as binaries and are under free license. But yeah, it's the client and stuff that will break you. Beth says, I'm interested in what your results are there. I have no desire to move away from QWERTY despite its obvious failings, but I'm very interested. We'll see. We'll see. I failed twice trying to switch to Colmac, but I think I found why I felt I was failing. I was naive and thought just because I made good progress in typing tests, that would then translate into typing in general. And that's just not the case, because as I explained earlier, while your brain doesn't have to do anything but focus on the typing test, once you have a little bit of familiarity, things get into some kind of a flow. And on monkey type, I can already reach about 30 to 40 WPM. And then I try to type while I was writing an email or writing code or even writing on stream while I'm talking to you and things like that. And then things broke down completely, because once typing becomes a background job in your brain, muscle memory kicks in and screws everything. And so what I decided to do was to be kind with myself and grant myself the struggle, or grant myself to struggle. So if that means that I only can type very slowly here on stream while I'm talking and thinking about what's going to come next and things like that, then so be it. It'll take probably a few weeks for me to get some kind of proficiency that way, and it's going to be a little bit of a pain. On the other hand, I think, and that's the reason why I'm trying this now for a third time, it's going to be beneficial for my hands and my overall health if I can actually switch to Colmac, at least on my split keyboards. And so yeah, I'm prepared to suffer for a few weeks using this layout in practice and not only in typing tests. Yeah, it's basically for the greater good. Now let's go on with this article here. If you have used Chef commercially so far, and commercially in the eyes of the vendor means in a scenario designed to make a profit, you're likely to have used the vendor's binary packages to do so. Correct? From today's perspective, Chef users are justified in seeing this announcement as doing lip service to the Floss ideals. Yeah, we've seen this a few times more since then. While central tools such as Chef Workstation, Infra Client or Infra Server initially remained available as binaries under the usual licenses, the manufacturer has tightened the reins on later versions and made the new EULA mandatory there too. Today, not a single one of the central Chef components is available in binary form under a free license. Admins whose entire automation is based on Chef therefore face a dilemma. And that article is from 2020, by the way. The Chef packages they deployed will gradually become unusable, without being guilty of breaking the license agreement if they refuse to purchase a Chef license, because the new EULA only allows the use of the packages without a commercial agreement with Progress Software for experimental or personal purposes. Trap and release. Difficult to justify. By the way, the purported reasons for the license changes, according to the manufacturer at that time, was to unify the license model of the software and offer the best possible support for customers who use Chef commercially. Bullshit. If people want to have support, you can ask them to pay. You don't have to change the license preemptively to everyone, regardless if they ever want to avail of support or not. Progress Software also offered a questionable comparison. They claimed that basically the new business model is no different from the one that Red Hat and SUSE use for their distributions in the enterprise segment. Most of the software there is open source too, but users have to pay for commercial use. This comparison admittedly ignores the fact that users have, and there, we actually get into the topic that you already mentioned. The user have had a binary-compatible distribution in the form of CentOS as an alternative to Red Hat since 2004 at the latest. This distribution was even maintained directly by Red Hat for many years. If you owned a Red Hat setup, you could therefore switch to CentOS with relatively little overhead, and many admins have made extensive use of this option. Yeah, so in case of, it's kind of the same as with Red Hat. Back then, at least. Red Hat, of course, has now changed their licensing again. And the way they are dealing with CentOS too, as we all know. However, there was actually an alternative that you could switch to, while what Progress Software or Chef did back then was basically one of the more early rug pulls in open source software. If you owned a Red Hat setup, how important CentOS is on the market was revealed when Red Hat decided to kill the distribution. Within a few hours, two projects were founded in the form of Rocky Linux and Alma Linux to continue offering a fully RHEL-compatible distribution. The situation is different for Chef administrators. They made a conscious decision to use a tool for automation a few years back. Yeah, in our case, that was 10 years earlier than that. And have since developed a complex tool set with this solution. Yeah. I have no idea how many thousand lines of code we have in our infrastructure repository. License change forced them to make another decision, either pay or use a different automation solution. Yeah, or stagnate, as we did. Introducing a compliant solution would cost a great deal of money, as anyone with any expertise knows, yeah. But above all, it would mean a massive workload at a time when companies are already desperately looking for skilled personnel. Mind you, that was at the beginning of COVID, when that article was written. Bethesda said, giving yourself grace is essential. I had the same thing with my Moodle. Yeah, I guess I simply raised my expectations too high, expectations on myself, because, yeah, seeing myself making this nice kind of progress in typing tests, I expected that to translate into practical typing in some way, but yeah, it doesn't. Now, to ensure that this pretty new licensing system is not endangered by interference from the sidelines, Chef also introduced a brand new trademark hammer at the same time as the new licensing setup. Since then, only the Chef version that comes directly from Progress Software in the binary form can be referred to as Chef. Reasons given for this are predictable as they are silly. Progress Software does not want to dilute the brand, and it wants to ensure that admins get the highest quality software when they install binaries that have Chef in their name. Yeah, of course. That's at least what the lawyers say. What this means in concrete terms is that distributors who compile Chef from the source code themselves, i.e. who build their own Chef distribution, are no longer to distribute the resulting packages under the Chef label. Okay. Additionally, third-party vendors must ensure that compiled Chef packages do not share paths on the file system with the official packages. Oh, interesting. That's a nice detail that I don't think I learned of before. Compiled Chef packages do not share paths on the file system with the official packages? How would that even work? Well, let's read on. If you want to start your own Chef distribution on the basis of free source code, you have to change the path, say opt something, because... Okay, so you can't use opt Chef anymore. Yeah, makes sense. Vendor has gracefully allowed the Ruby module from the official Chef packages to keep their names. However, if you want to switch from Chef to a different Chef distribution, you can look forward to a substantial amount of migration work, if only because of the different paths in the file system. Oh, that is definitely going to be interesting in terms of switching to a new version of the server component, because everything will live in a different directory by then, I would assume. But since the usual way to migrate to a newer version of, say, Chef Server is to export all the data from the old server and then import it into the new server, this might not be as detrimental as it first sounds. Decisive action from Debian. With a short delay, distributors started to respond to the confusing path taken by Chef. Debian threw everything out. Small side note on the release notes is all that remains of Chef in Debian. Anything else was hardly to be expected. After all, the Debian project has enough experience with stubborn vendors. Yeah, okay. Debian maintainers apparently do not think that Chef is important enough to warrant providing a separate variant. So, since Debian 11, it's gone. What are the options for Chef users who have now lost their automator because of the scenario just described? Some may feel tempted at first moment to fire up a compiler themselves. Where there is no plaintiff, there is no judge, and Progress Software might not even care whether these specially compiled packages use OptChef as their path or something else, as long as you don't redistribute the binaries. This approach only seems attractive at first glance. Anyone who has ever maintained packages of any kind for a Linux distribution will be aware that if you want to build high-quality packages, this strategy will regularly cause overhead on a scale that many companies probably cannot afford. This is where Sync enters the scene. Sync, or capital Sync, is the acronym for Sync is not Chef, and jokingly refers to itself as the free as in beer distribution of Chef. Free as in beer is a stock phrase in the floor. Yeah, okay. One way or another, Sync wants to establish itself on the market as binary compatible Chef distribution, and avoiding the general wailing and gnashing of teeth provoked by Progress Software. To achieve this goal, creators are proceeding in phases, taking on the various components of Chef one by one. Okay, what Sync does... Yeah, they did make progress since 2020. The people behind Sync vehemently insist that they are not affiliated with Progress Software in any way, and who could blame them? I need to state explicitly again that Sync is looking to be as compatible as possible with Chef, to the extent that this is legally permissible. Developers intend for cookbooks designed for a specific Chef version to work with the same version of Sync. There are limits to compatibility, however, in places such as file system paths. precisely because they are required to differ from the paths used by Chef. Oh, that explains also why I ran into difficulties with where to put my key files and stuff. In this respect, sync cannot become a drop-in replacement. I see. Sync inspec works well. Counterpart to Chef inspec is probably the most advanced component. This component was not part of Chef in the beginning, was acquired by Progress Software. Inspec stands alongside Chef Infra. Inspec is the testing framework for Chef, but Inspec is not only used to test cookbooks, you can also use it to test your servers themselves, because Inspec basically is kind of a predecessor, a successor of server spec. So it's a kind of an auditing tool for live servers as well. Our team is using Inspec only as a test framework for our cookbooks. We don't do auditing using Inspec. But this feature basically provided the name for the open source variant, because that is now called Auditor. By the way, the Chef makers themselves do not think they have gone too far with the license change. In its own FAQ, company states that the Chef code currently does not contain any checks that automatically classify the workload on site with a view to penalize license violations. Reason given is that the company is aware of its own responsibility for those setups in which Chef is used as a mission-critical component. These setups can themselves be relevant, say, for operating mission-critical infrastructure. Checks of this kind are not planned for the foreseeable future. The statement continues, whether you actually believe promises like this from the vendor is, of course, a question of your personal stance. Yeah, it's a kind of a case of trick me once. In the same document, the manufacturer does anticipate the option of a fork on external distribution. However, Chef would not be Chef if it did not also try to jump onto this bandwagon too. As a precaution, Chef has therefore presented a distribution guideline to which distributors are required to adhere. According to the manufacturer, the respective creators are responsible for the content of distribution and forks. Also in that document, Progress Software explicitly refuses to provide build help to external distributors from the community. Yeah, I can see why. But the Sync project actually does state on their website that they did get a bit of help. At least probably in terms of how to navigate those murky waters of licensing and stuff. So they seem to not have fallen on completely deaf ears there. Sync could well be a safe haven for desperate admins who don't want to get into trouble because of license violations. Migrating from an older version of Chef to a current Sync release does involve a few obstacles, especially in terms of the paths to files on the file system. However, a short, sharp shock is probably preferable to infinite pain, and making the move is far less time-consuming than maintaining your own packages, which ultimately makes it acceptable. Yeah, I guess. What is clearly less acceptable is Progress Software's audacity in forcing admins to resort to these emergency measures. Admittedly, every software vendor is free to determine its business model and change it over time, but if a change results in basically eradicating the technical basis of existing setups, it is tantamount to severe breach of trust between the vendor and the user. Yeah. As we now know, Chef probably wasn't the first and certainly wasn't the last company to do these kinds of things. Fool's Novel, hey, welcome to the stack. Alright, now that I've completely updated myself on what happened back then. I guess I should actually go ahead and work on my slides here. Chef, yeah, Chef is the automation software that our team uses to automate hundreds of Linux servers, and I try to quickly build a slide deck that allows me to propose a talk at the Ruby Unconf, which I'm going to attend over the weekend. For that purpose, I'm taking a talk that I did in 2010 out of the archive and simply updating that a little. So that is Chef. I guess that is the first introduction. Let's talk about Chef components, and since Reveal.js allows me to build hierarchical slides, I'll use 2 dashes here in this markdown, which Reveal.js uses to make this basically a group of slides that can be navigated separately. Oh, you did propose a talk, and one conference rejected it and another accepted it, or how did this work? How am I going to talk about the product from there on? I would say we'll focus on the open source variant from there on. Components. That is the sync server. Oops. And well, I don't have to list that on the slide. I'll talk about how sync server internally uses Solar and Redis as well. Connie, welcome to the stack. Hello. I hope you're doing great. Flusnabel, what was the talk that you proposed, and which conference did accept it? Where can we find you giving this talk? Sync server, then there's I guess sync client or workstation. Well, let's list those components first, and then we can basically say, okay, the client together with sync auditor or editor, then basically was then bundled into the sync workstation bundle. Okay, that's that. How to build small executables. Yes, I do know that you're into that, and if we're talking small, we're talking about very, very small. We're talking about units that have become very unfamiliar. Units like kilobyte. Okay, how much do you think I should talk about sync or chef here? Not much more, I guess. Well, I guess we'll have to mention Test Kitchen. Minesweeper as a small executable. Interesting. I mean, Minesweeper isn't too complex, is it? It's probably a good example of building a small executable. I think I'm going to do a break here and then go into the actual infrastructure code, which is provided by cookbooks. And the main content of cookbooks is of course recipes, which are the actual infrastructure as code files. Those recipes might also have libraries, but that's nothing chef specific. That's Ruby. I guess we'll have to talk about resources. And those can be built-in and custom. Then Cookbook will probably, hopefully, come with tests. And then we'll have to talk about attributes. To adapt stuff to individual machines. So let's see how this goes on. There's the about me, then we go into infrastructure as code, chef sync. And here we have cookbooks. Oh, and before there was chef sync, where we can go down to the sync components and then we go right to the next section. Okay. Yeah, at this point I should probably get into actual code. And I think I'd like to use our Nginx cookbook as an example. Let me see. So we're using the Nginx, the public Nginx cookbook, to take care of all the basic stuff, to install Nginx and set up the general configuration file and stuff like that, which I think is a good aspect as well. You don't have to invent the wheel all over again. You can actually use an open source cookbook or someone else's cookbook, and then build upon that. For example, what we do is we add the Nginx PPA as a package source. So when the open source cookbook tries to install Nginx, it's not going to be installed from the distribution. In our case, Ubuntu, it's going to be installed from the official Nginx repository, which will probably provide a much more recent version. We don't have any template that we're writing here, so I guess it's a good idea to go into the built-in resources first. Yeah, let's do exactly that. So we are going to talk about built-in resources. And here we're going to talk about stuff that you usually want to do when you're doing system administration. You want to, for example, you want to install packages. You want to manage services. So there's the service resource, and of course you also want to customize that service, which will probably lead to you using the template resource. Let's maybe talk about the file resource as well, which is the alternative to deploying a package. You can simply deploy a file, create a file, or deploy a file from a cookbook if the cookbook provides the file. But if you want to simply write a file based on an existing template with placeholders in it, then you usually use the template resource. What else do we have? Those are the main resources, and I'm probably going to limit myself to not try and cover everything. Fullsnabel, for which target architecture or target computing platform are you building your Minesweeper game? It's going to be a browser game. It's going to be something like a WASM application, or is it targeting some kind of a retro platform? Let's take a look at Chef resources, huh? Chef resources. Examples? Okay. Let's see. Anything I missed? Lots of stuff. Oh yeah, the execute and bash resources, those are important as well. And yeah, we should also talk about data. I was already thinking, are we going to talk about attributes in the context of cookbooks? We probably have to. But I guess if we are just getting into this, cookbooks is more the code part of everything, and then we have data. And that means we have attributes, which are node related. So each server, aka node, has its own attributes. We can make those attributes more generic by introducing roles. And then there's data bags, which is a completely independent way to store data that's not node related. And maybe it's a good idea to separate those in the, well, let's call it node independent. Yeah, why not? Node independent. And those are node specific. Node specific. Something like that. Cron is another interesting resource that many system administrators will understand. I could mention the Ruby block in connection with the Bash block, because that's a good alternative. Yeah, I think that's a good selection. Oops. Okay. After introducing cookbooks, I should probably also talk about where to get cookbooks, and that the supermarket is not a great catalog of cookbooks anymore, I don't think. So maybe just mention that in passing. Let's do a simple example. Come on, Ruby. Here we go. Maybe before starting with code, let's introduce the example. And our example is going to be what service could we simply install with a web server and things like that. It's going to be too complex. What service is there that we could install as a package and then manage with a simple configuration file? God, what's running on our Linux servers without us noticing because it's so trivial? I would like to have something very trivial here. Maybe something like log rotate. That would be something very simple where we have a daemon that runs. It's not even a daemon actually, it's getting installed using cron. So yeah, let's say set up log rotate. Which means we have a file called log rotate slash recipes slash default .rb. With some content. And then we'll have so we'll first install the package. And then set up a configuration file. Dear me, this is really going to be a struggle. Okay, this file is going to go on forever, I guess. Oof. So there's going to be another code block for that. And I guess finally in this recipe we'll configure cron. And for cron, we might want to have the hour configurable to which at which this is going to run. So we have to use and introduce a one or more attributes. And that's basically it. I could even set up the configuration file in a very static way using the file resource, already cooked file resource, without even going into templating. But since we are at a Ruby conference, maybe introducing or mentioning templates does make sense as well, because people will be familiar with ERB probably, and seeing that Chef uses the same templating as Rails is probably going to be an interesting detail as well. So we'll set up the configuration file in a way that also needs node attributes, and then we can address them in this attributes file. Makes sense. And then we could go into testing as well. Which also is going to be interesting because people are probably familiar with RSpec, and seeing that Test Kitchen basically takes a very similar approach is also going to be a nice aha moment for people who weren't aware that there's Ruby-based infrastructure code out there. So yeah, let's go into that as well. If we are going to use a template up here, we'll here at this point we'll probably have to then introduce a templates /default/default.rb, and that's going to be an ERB file. Is ERB a valid? Yeah, I guess so. ERB Ruby? Not sure how this actually works. We'll see once I have actual code in there. I'm at the moment just building a kind of an outline, even though I'm already building out the slides, and I'll insert the content later, just so I can see how this whole thing is going to be structured. And I'll also have to end my stream a little bit early today because I have to do travel preparations. I also have to charge the car so we get to the airport tomorrow morning, and there are a few things that I need to get done as well before leaving. So I don't have a lot more time at this point. Now, let's finish that kind of outline here. So we're going into testing. Let's see, in my old talk, What did I cover there? Chef Basics. Having a nice overview of how Chef works or the different components, that's actually a good idea. Does Reveal.js have mermaid diagram support built in? That would be great if that was actually the case. So let's call this the architecture. Architecture slide. Let's find out. Reveal.js mermaid. It's a plugin, okay. Project is essentially retired, okay. Not sure if I can use mermaid in Markdown, however. This is Reveal.js using HTML. Maybe I'll have to convert my Markdown into a HTML reveal document if I want to really use that. And other than that, I can pull that in from JS Deliver. I just have to initialize it a little bit more and list it as a plugin. That is reasonably simple. But are always coming up with the more practical advice. Just bang out a quick drag and Ruby diagram with your negative time remaining to prepare for your talk. It'll be fine. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. And you're right, Markdown does allow HTML tags. I'm just not sure if Reveal.js will actually parse Markdown in a way that it will pick up Mermaid.js code, or if it'll just render that literally instead of interpreting it. But that's, I guess, maybe for another time. I think I'll be able to create a quick diagram using Excalidraw or something like that more quickly than rebuilding my Jekyll setup here to also incorporate Mermaid.js. It would be nice to be able to use that in the future, but maybe, as Balthazar says, not when I already have negative time to prepare. I'll give it a try, Balthazar. I'll give it a try, but I think for the time being, I'll play it safe and simply build a very static graphic. All right, while the ad is playing over on Twitch, let's see. Oh yeah, we have the concept here: nodes, attributes, database, resources, recipes, definitions. I can lose the definitions. That's not up to date anymore. Anyway, that's now done by custom resources. Cookbooks, roles. Okay, we've covered that. Here we have resources listed, package, file directory link, user group, cookbook file, template service, remote file. Git is another resource. I don't think I'm going to mention that. Command script, yep, mount, EF configurator. Okay, I think we're good. Back then, I built a quick backup cookbook. Backup would be another interesting topic, actually. Maybe choose a quick cookbook that installs Borg and Borgmatic, deploys the configuration file for Borgmatic, and installs it as a service that runs using cron. Systemd timers would be a little bit more complex without much value to the audience, because it'll end up being another resource there. Yeah, maybe instead of going for logrotate, I'm going to do backup. Back then, I actually chose Bacula as my software. The days of Bacula in our infrastructure have long been gone since then. It's a nice blast from the past. And then the talk was already over, so I don't think I'll cram in much more than that. I'm even already going beyond my old talk there by mentioning testing, which is because back in 2010, when I held that talk, I wasn't even aware that there was testing. But it's become so important that I can't leave that out in this talk. And so we'll end on a slide that's going to be separate as a group, and that slide will just say thank you. And at that point, I'll ask for questions. Oh dear, you. There we go. That's it. And let's delete those. All right, I think I'll be able to finish that tonight. But first I have to take care of a few more pressing things, like having my bags packed. I can go there without a talk, but I can't go there without undies. So yeah, priorities. Oh, there's still coffee left. Speaking of priorities. Balthasar says, I won't distract you too much, but in regard to our discussion the other day, I rediscovered HomeLab OS, which is in the process of migrating from single node Compose to K3s. I've never heard of HomeLab OS. What is HomeLab OS? Let's take a look. Concentration. HomeLab OS. Look at how I typed that. Offline first, privacy-centric, personal data center. Nice. It is not an OS. Okay. It's just a... Is it just a collection of services? Yeah, free private self-hosted app store, basically. Similar to what Portainer does for containers, I guess. And so far they've been using Docker Compose to deploy their stuff, similar to Portainer, if I understand you correctly. And they're now extending to using K3s to deploy stuff, so they'll be able to do multi-node and scaling and things like that. Interesting. Zulip is a supporter of the HomeLab OS project. That's always great to see. I can't recommend Zulip enough. And they have a Zulip chat. Okay, so that's why Zulip is a supporter. They provide the community chat, which is a great alternative over Discord. Nice. You like to see it. Twitch, watch Nick Busey work on Home OS in real time live on Twitch TV. I need to actually subscribe to Nick. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm following him there yet. And there's YouTube and Twitter. Okay, nice. Well, thanks for the tip, Balthasar. I'll look into that a little bit more. Also into what K3S is going to, what role K3S is going to play in the future. Bunch of Ansible to set up and manage home lab nodes. Okay. Now you've piqued my interest even more. Documentation, installation, getting started. Maybe look into... that doesn't tell us much. Installation, Docker, domain name, S3. Oh, right. For backups. I see. So let's take a look. What if I wanted to install my own Zulip instance? Which brings me to a completely different thought. I forgot that you can actually self-host Zulip. So, sorry, I can't rest my fingers on the keyboard anymore because those keys are so much more sensitive since I installed lighter switches that I keep typing stuff. I forgot that I can self-host Zulip, which means we could actually switch to Zulip for the server room, which I would love. We're using Zulip on our team, and it's a much better experience for us than with Slack. And yeah, so that already was worth the detour, Balthasar. Oh, now I remember that I mentioned that at some time last year, I think. And Exegete said that he wouldn't be too fond of switching chat services. I'll keep it in the back of my mind, though. It's always good to know that there's going to be a plan B if should Discord decide to do stuff that's even more silly than what they've done so far. All right. Fußnabel, I actually thought about setting up an IRC server for the server room for our community yesterday. I did. I had to charge the car at a fast charger yesterday as well, because this morning my wife had to drive my daughter to the airport. She's visiting her grandparents in Germany. So the car had to be charged last night as well. And I sat there and suddenly I had the thought, what if we would use something more old school for our chat? And we'd set up an IRC server and recommend to people using something like Cloud IRC as their client. If they don't want to install their own IRC client or something like that, they could still use Cloud IRC for free in their browser. Just that as they would use Discord in the browser if they wouldn't want to install an app. So actually, the barrier to using IRC isn't that high anymore. Biggest pain is the lack of chat history. Yeah, but I guess that's debatable. Because chat history in Discord, for example, isn't great either. It might actually retain lots of stuff, but have you ever tried to find something in that retained history? IRC v3, I don't know. That will probably depend on the version or on the IRC server application that you're choosing. I don't actually. Let me see. I should still have it on my iPad here. Which IRC server did I find? Inspire CD. So let's go there. Inspire IRC D. Okay, that's actually nice to see that there's support for certbot, so it can auto-renew its TLS certificates. Let's see. Documentation, I guess. Here, server protocol, isn't that what it's all about? Concepts. Doesn't mention. Thanks for the recommendation, Moo. I wasn't aware that there was an alternative, the lounge.chat. Interesting. Yeah, I just researched that for a little time, so I definitely don't have the full picture yet. But it seemed it would be quite straightforward, setting up an IRC server on the server side and then recommending to someone a cloud-based or a web-based IRC client. And with IRC Cloud, there's definitely something that's free, at least. It's not open source, but it's free. Because, of course, introducing a chat service that would require people to incur cost just to join it would, of course, be quite prohibitive, and I wouldn't want to do that. First Lab says, but wait, does the IRC client at least consume all CPU resources and most of your memory? Seems the chat client must do that. Well, I don't think IRC clients usually are like that, I'm afraid. But you can always distribute them as Electron apps, and you'll probably get that feature. Bethesda says it's less about trying to use it as an info repository and more about being able to stumble upon historical conversations. To be honest, I don't really care about historical conversations when it comes to chat. Because chat in general is not great for this kind of discovery, regardless of the chat platform that you're using. People joining an existing community will already have difficulties catching up with stuff in any kind of chat service. That's where I think the forum has far better user experience in terms of discovering historical conversations and being able to read up on them because of the inherent threading and things like that. I personally treat chat pretty much as ephemeral. And if it's older than, say, a week or so, I don't really care about that anymore. So being able to preserve and make available historical conversations isn't really high on my list. You can always try to convince me otherwise. I'm open to arguments, of course, but at least at this time, that's not a feature I'm looking for. And Balthasar adds, for instance, I joined the HomeLab OS Zulip yesterday, and there was an ongoing conversation regarding adding support for Caddy because it has support for Tailscale's admin-certs. I was able to posit that should HomeLab OS upgrade to Traffic, they also have that feature. Yeah, but isn't that also because Zulip is much more geared towards preserving conversation threads because it does threading automatically instead of Discord having to requiring you to be conscientious enough to create threads for each and every topic that emerges. So yes, there are definitely chat services that are more conducive to having ongoing and more long-term conversations, even historical conversations, than, say, Discord. And IRC would be pretty bad. It would probably be worse than Discord, even in that regard, because there is no threading in IRC. You only have your single channels and that's it, but you can't even separate conversations happening in parallel in those channels. Things will become a huge ball of mud pretty quickly. That definitely turns me off IRC in that regard. Yeah, maybe going the route of using Zulip as a Discord replacement would be the more sensible one. But that's for another day anyway. I'm not going to replace Discord anytime soon, not this month, probably not next. So that's something that we can discuss over time. And yeah, I can 100% relate as time has gone on when joining a new chat network. First thing to do is usually poke around and see if it's the kind of place I want to invest in the first place. Yeah, of course. I hope we'll be able to build something that attracts lots of people. And I'll have a look at HomeLab OS and what it's going to do with K3S. I leave that tab open. All right, so let's wrap things up. As I said, I won't be doing an office hour live stream tomorrow because I'll already be in Hamburg at that time. Just waiting for my room to get ready, I guess. And I'll be in Hamburg for the weekend, and I'll be traveling home on Monday. There will be a live stream on Tuesday afternoon, as far as I can tell, and so I hope to see you then. If not, you can join our aforementioned Discord server, of course. You're more than welcome to join us there and continue the chat, even outside of streams. And if you'd like to grow your skills and maybe even boost your career a little bit more, I can recommend joining the server room, my membership community, and read more about that at theserverroom.sh. Other than that, I don't think there's any more to mention at this point, so I will say goodbye for the rest of the week. I hope to see you next week. Thanks for joining us here. This has been fun. and I'll tell you on Tuesday if I actually did propose a talk and if it even was accepted, if that. And until then, take care.